I should not have gotten married. Before I begin, I'd just like to say that I am recording on some pretty low tech kind of equipment, in that I decided not to use my more expensive kind of fancy microphone because I can't quite get used to it. There's just, even when I have the gain on incredibly low, it seems like it picks up a lot of noise around me, so I'm actually looking into getting a different microphone and maybe one that's not so sensitive. So if the sound quality is not that good, I apologize. It's really hard for me to use those higher end microphones because I'm really sensitive to certain noises, and I also am a person who absolutely despises mouth sounds, and when I use that other microphone, I feel like no matter how low I put the gain, you can still hear mouth sounds, and I know a lot of people, quite like mouth sounds, but I absolutely hate them, so if I even hear it, I'll end up just being like, forget it, I'm not uploading that. So, tonight I am going to be talking about, like I said, a young married couple, and I'm going to start out with 21-year-old Jordan Graham. Jordan posted a picture of her engagement ring on social media in December of 2012, and she writes, "He proposed. Best early Christmas present ever." So, who was it who proposed? Well, that was 24-year-old Cody Johnson. Cody and Jordan, they had been dating for a little over 1 year. And when they did get engaged, some of their friends, Cody and Jordan's, they were actually kind of surprised at the news of the engagement, because although Cody and Jordan had been dating for quite a while, the two really didn't have much in common. They were two very different people with very different personalities. Most of Cody and Jordan's friends felt that the relationship they had was really a very one-sided one, in that Cody seemed to care much more for Jordan than she did for him. So Cody and Jordan, they met in Kalispell, Montana, which Kalispell is a town of just 20,000 residents, and it's located in northern Montana. It is an area that includes Glacier National Park, and it has 1,500 square miles of hiking trails. It also has these very beautiful lakes and some waterfalls, and so that's in Montana's Rocky Mountains, and that stretches all the way to the Canadian border. So let me tell you about Cody. Cody was a very outgoing and quite a popular guy, and he was thought of as being an all-American kid. He absolutely loved being outside, loved the outdoors, anything to do with it. He did some shooting, kayaking, golfing, and his favorite thing to do was change isn't really that easy. Well, I don't actually mean an oil change, I mean like an oil check, you know, although I am one of the few females that I know who actually knows how to do my own oil change. Yeah, I know, I'm awesome like that. So Cody also loved to go four-wheeling, which was great because Cody happened to live in an area that had some really steep hills and valleys that were all over that town. Cody was very fun-loving, and he was very, very happy, like all the time. People would always say Cody was always smiling. He was always so happy and always so positive. He loved to make people laugh, and because of that, he had a lot of friends, and everybody considered him as one of the nicest guys that they knew. After graduating, Cody began working for a company in Kalispell called Nomad Communication Solutions. Cody was an only child, and Jordan, on the other hand, she was the oldest in her family. She lived with her mother and stepfather, and she has a younger brother. His name is Michael, and Michael is 6 years younger than Jordan. Jordan was a quiet girl. She was fairly reserved and shy, and she began working as a nanny after high school. She and her family were devoted Christians, and they were very committed to church and all that, and it was really, really important to Jordan that her activities revolve around the church, so most of them did. Because she was shy, she wasn't popular the way that Cody was, but she did have friends, and she was socially active. She just seemed more comfortable when she was alone, or when she was around children that she cared for, such as the kids that she nannied. Jordan's parents wanted her to wait until she was 18 for her to start dating, and that really did not seem to bother her at all. Her mother believed that a good Christian girl didn't really need to be with a boy unless they were considering a future together. And as a Christian, Jordan believed that sex should be saved for marriage, so she really was not in a hurry to date anybody exclusively. So instead, she spent time with her girlfriends, and she would gather together in these co-ed group activities. In 2011, a friend introduced Jordan to Cody, and Cody was attracted to Jordan straight away. Jordan wasn't really very talkative when she met him, but Cody really liked how she was really attractive without caking on all the makeup, and she didn't seem very fake. She seemed very real to him, and she also did not seem to be consumed with putting on airs, very unpretentious like other girls. He liked that she didn't dress provocatively to get attention. That in particular made him happy because Cody had been wanting to date a nice girl that he could take seriously, and he felt that Jordan was a very good fit for him. The fact that she was so quiet, it really did not bother Cody, and he figured that he was sociable enough for the both of them. So as Jordan started realizing that Cody was interested in her and that he did want to be serious with her, Jordan understand that because they all thought that Cody was a really nice-looking guy. Jordan's friends all knew that Cody adored her and that he would do anything to make her happy. Her friends also would say that she did not reciprocate that and how awkward it was to be around the two of them because of it. And one of Jordan's friends would say that she had never even seen Jordan or Cody hold hands or kiss or flirt with one another. Jordan also did this thing where she would try to avoid spending time alone with Cody, and whenever they made plans to do something together, Jordan would ask a friend to go along with them, and if a friend couldn't go, then Jordan would bring her younger brother Michael along with them. And Michael really adored Cody, and the feeling was mutual, so it was never really a big problem. So, with all of this, Jordan's friends really did not understand why Jordan was marrying Cody. So, in order to make sense of it, or to justify it, they felt like perhaps they were different behind closed doors. Maybe with Jordan being a conservative type of girl, she just wasn't comfortable with public displays of affection. So with all of that in mind, Jordan's friends supported her decision and just went with it. However, Cody's friends were not as easily convinced. They felt like Jordan's friends did. They knew how awkward Jordan was when they were around the couple, and they did not like it. At first, they thought that Jordan was shy and quiet, and because she didn't actually spend a lot of time around Cody's friends, they didn't really know her all that well. But Cody's friends knew enough about the relationship to be against it. They didn't spend a lot of time with Jordan, but when they did, Jordan was unfriendly and antisocial. They could easily see that Cody was in love with Jordan, but from their eyes, Jordan was cold to Cody. So Cody had this good friend named Cameron Fredrickson, and Cameron said that when Cody told him that he had proposed to Jordan, that Cameron was not supportive, and he said that he had a conversation with Cody telling him to reconsider because it really just did not seem like a happy, loving relationship like one should be when you get married. And Cameron would also say that, it was just incredibly awkward to be around them, and that Jordan was distant and reserved. But Cody could not be talked out of marrying Jordan. Cody's mother said that Cody was so ecstatic about the marriage, and because Cody was happy that it was all that really mattered to her, she agreed that Jordan wasn't affectionate, but she also didn't expect her to be in front of his mother. So she gave Cody and Jordan her blessing, and Jordan began planning her wedding. So Jordan, she throws herself wholeheartedly into planning her wedding. And her friends were like, okay, this is actually much better than we expected because Jordan looked really happy. She really loved to talk about anything to do with the upcoming wedding, and she was having a really good time with her friends, doing all the, wedding things, picking out her dress, trying out different cakes, that kind of thing. And so she just seemed really, really happy, and her friends just started to believe, like, you know what, maybe we were all wrong. However, in the days just before the wedding, Jordan started to get cold feet. She began texting friends saying that she wasn't sure that she was making the right decision, and she wondered if she should call the whole thing off. Her friends chalked it up to normal wedding day jitters, and they all told Jordan just how in love Cody was with her, and they suggested that maybe she just talk to Cody about it, saying that he'd understand the way she was feeling, and maybe Cody was a little nervous as well, and that if she had a conversation with him, that it might confirm their love for one another. Well, on June 29th of 2013, Jordan and Cody got married. A lot of times I want to say Jody, kind of a little portmanteau, combining their names together, Jordan and Cody, so sometimes I get tripped up and say Jody, but you know what I'm saying. So they married in the formal gardens of Kalispell, and when Jordan began walking down the aisle, Jordan began bawling her eyes out, but not because she was happy. A friend of Jordan's that was at the wedding said that Jordan was actually kind of sad, not happy. She said that Jordan did not look at Cody. She looked at the ground, or her eyes were fixed to the side, and that she squirmed when the minister told her to take Cody's hand, and that she barely looked at him when she recited her vows. A lot of people expressed just how uncomfortable and awkward they felt watching how much Cody was so obviously happy while Jordan was clearly what they observed as squirmy and reluctant. They had hoped that it was just because Jordan was so reserved and that she did not like to be the center of attention. But as the receptionist got on its way, Jordan seemed to loosen up a bit, and she smiled and took pictures with the wedding party. Cody was taking some funny shots, and he was being a ham in some of the pictures, and Jordan even took a few shots like that too. They even had an original song written for their wedding, and Jordan sang it to Cody as their first dance. Jordan had written the lyrics to the song, so she had most of her hand in that. And after the wedding was over, they spent their honeymoon night at a hotel in a place called Big Fork, and the next day they went back home. Although they had already moved in together, they had agreed not to sleep with one another until they were officially married. So Jordan remained a virgin until her wedding night. But no, she didn't. The next day, Jordan called her maid of honor and told her that she was having a total meltdown. She said that she had not consummated her marriage that wedding night, and she also confessed that she made a huge mistake marrying Cody. Her maid of honor told her to give it some time and tells her that she's just getting used to being a married woman and that things will be fine. But then Jordan starts sending a bunch of texts to her. Jordan's text said, I'm reading you what, between Jordan and her maid of honor Kim. So Jordan's text said, I should be happy, but I'm just not. just don't know. So Kim sends her a text back saying, last night at the wedding or last night at the room. And then Jordan's text said, being married and after the wedding. So Kim asks her what happened, and Jordan tells Kim that she'd rather talk about it in person. She does not want to talk about it by text. So a couple of days later, Jordan goes over to Kim's house and she sits down and she's crying and crying, and Jordan told Kim that the wedding had been a miserable time and that neither she nor Cody had enjoyed it. Kim misunderstood what Jordan was saying, and she thought that Jordan was talking about the first time that Jordan and Cody had sex with each other. Jordan admits to Kim that she was terrified of having sex with her husband. And again, Kim just gives her words of encouragement, telling Jordan that over time things will settle down and things will be fine, just kind of calm down a little. But Jordan kept the text coming to Kim with doubts and issues over the next few days. In one text, Jordan said, I just know he's gonna want to do stuff, and I'm not really wanting to. The next day, she texted Kim again with, I'm using the I just started my period spiel tonight. I freaking hope it works, because if I'm forced to do something, I'm going to freak out. Kim again told Jordan to talk to her husband about how she's feeling, and Jordan responded with, I feel like it's my job to make him happy, even if I'm miserable. 1 week after the wedding, Jordan tells Kim that she and Cody still hadn't had sex, and Jordan begins to panic that she won't be able to use excuses for much longer. On the night of July 7th, Kim receives a text from Jordan around 9 p.m. saying, I'm about to talk to him, and Kim responds that she will pray for them. Before saying goodnight to Kim, Jordan texts, but I'm being dead serious. If you don't hear from me again tonight, something happened. Kim wasn't really sure what Jordan was talking about. That was very confusing to her. She wasn't really thinking it was all that bad. She was really starting to feel bad, like maybe she should do something more about this, but she also thought that between husband and wife, they really should be working these things out together. So then Jordan sends her another message that says, I'm going to go for a walk or something. Jump off a freaking bridge. I've lost it. So again, Kim doesn't know how to respond, and Kim was relieved when she didn't hear from Jordan again that night, and she had hoped that Jordan was just being dramatic. Kim's rationale was that Cody was a really good guy, and she very much believed that Cody was patient and that he would calm Jordan down. But what Kim didn't know was that Jordan had already decided to take matters into her own hands. On Saturday, July 7th, Cody had made plans to go golfing and kayaking with his new father-in-law, so Jordan's stepfather, Steve. They had made plans the night before, but that morning at church, Cody tells Steve that he can't make it because Jordan had made other plans. Then later that surprise for him. Cody's friend, Brad, notices that Cody looked especially happy that day, and although Cody never said anything to him, he believed that Cody and Jordan still had not slept together, and he believed that it was the surprise that had something to do with it. That night, Jordan and Cody had gone to church. They went to a service at the church with friends, and then they all went to Dairy Queen afterwards. A friend of Cody's asked Cody what the surprise had been, and Cody said that it hadn't happened yet. Jordan and Cody then left at 8 p.m. and that was the last time that anybody ever saw or spoke to Cody again. The weekend passed and Cody did not show up to work. He did not call his co-workers. He didn't call his mom to tell them that he'd be taking the day off, and they were thinking that it was very unlike him to just not show up. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? When I was learning about this case, and I read in a couple of different places the same kind of thing where, like, he did not call his co-workers. I understand that, but, like, it said that, like, he did not even call his mom, and I don't know any 24-year-old men who, if they're taking a day off from work, that would, like, call their mom and tell her that. That kind of seemed weird to me, but I don't know. Maybe they worked in a family business together, but I don't think so, because he was working at that nomad place. So Jordan was telling them, when Cody didn't show up at work, Jordan was telling them that Cody had left on a trip with friends on Saturday, and that he wasn't back yet, which his friends thought was really strange because none of them had heard or been told by Cody that he was taking a trip. His mother knew for certain that if Cody was leaving to go on a trip, that he would have told her about it. The next day, Jordan said that Cody still wasn't home, and Cody's mother was really scared, and she was so anxious, and she ends up calling the police. Jordan was complaining that, nobody needs to be calling the police, he'll be back. And she was complaining, but at the same time, she had this really, really calm demeanor about her that they thought was a little unusual. His friends and family were worried, but she didn't seem to be. They started to search on their own and printed out flyers and passed them out everywhere. They went to hospitals to look for him, and they called anybody and everybody they could think of. They kept asking Jordan questions and wanted more detailed answers than she was giving, because she was the last person to actually see Cody, and instead of doing everything she could to find him, she acted annoyed the more she was being questioned. At one point, when she was being asked questions, Jordan pulled off her wedding ring and threw it across the room. On July 10th, which was 3 days after Cody was last seen, Jordan called a friend and told her that she just received an email from someone named Tony, and she said he was a stranger to her, that she had no idea who this person was. And so I'm about to read you the email that Jordan said she received. It said, "Hello Jordan, my name is Tony. There is no bother in looking for Cody anymore. Cody is gone. I saw your post on Twitter and thought I would email you. He had come with some buddies and met up with me Sunday night in Columbia Falls. He was saying he needed to be with buddies for a bit and take them for a joyride before he had to go. He said bye to me, and they took off in a black car for a ride. 3 of the other guys came back, saying they had gone for a ride in the woods somewhere, and Cody got out of the car and went for a little hike, and they are positive that he fell and he is dead, Jordan. I don't know who the guys were, but they took off, so call off the missing person report. Cody is for sure gone. Tony. So Jordan's friends are like, they're stunned, and she's just sitting there reading the email, and it's from a stranger about her husband being dead, and she has absolutely no emotion. There was no crying, no panic. It was like she was reading a weather report. So her friend asks her, you just got this email. Have you reported it to the police yet? And Jordan's like, no. And her friend starts yelling at her. And she's like, what are you waiting for? You're crazy. Go to the police, tell them. And so Jordan calls her mom and asks her mother to go with her to the police station. So they get there and Jordan goes in and she reports the email that she had gotten, and she tells them that it was signed by, the email address was from carman tony607@gmail.com. So the police ask her about the last time she saw Cody, and she told them that it was on Sunday, that they had gone to dinner with some friends. Remember, they went to Dairy Queen. She said after getting home, she forgot her mobile phone charger, and I'm going to say that she went back to her house in the back bedroom, but I heard that she actually left it at the place where she nannies. So there's some conflicting things. So she either went back to where she was babysitting or nannying to grab her mobile phone charger, or she got it back home. It's not really clear, and I'm not really sure, but anyway, she told the police that she had forgotten her mobile phone charger, and that she went in to get it, and then she came out, and she saw Cody getting into a dark-colored vehicle with Washington state license plates. She told detectives that she didn't know who the people were that Cody had left with, and that she had never seen them before. But later, she had gotten a message from Cody telling her that some friends of his from out of state had come by and that he was going to go for a ride with them. As the detective asked Jordan more questions, he tells Jordan that he feels that she's not really being completely honest, but she stuck to her story about Cody leaving that night with his friends, but then added, but he always told me this one thing. When his friends would come to visit, he would take them to Glacier Park. The detectives were not convinced by Jordan's little story, but they went to work on who this mysterious Tony was and who had really sent the email. So later that day, this is when Jordan decides that she wants to search for Cody, and she calls some of Cody's friends who have already been searching for him still does not seem fazed by any of this. She was listening to the radio and singing and dancing along with the music, all while wearing Cody's sunglasses. One of her friends even notices that during all of this time, that Jordan seemed the happiest she had seen her in a long time. So they reached the park and started searching some hiking trails, but the sun had started to set, so they decided to return the next day. The next morning, July 11th, was the 4th day Cody was last seen. Jordan returns to Glacier National Park along with the couple's friends, along with her younger brother, to search for Cody. As soon as they got there that morning, Jordan starts to head down a popular trail with steep cliffs called the Loop. Some of the other people suggested searching trails that were closer to the road, but Jordan just ignored them all and led them all to a spot that was really high up on the Loop. She and her younger brother, they were the first to reach a clearing that had a low retaining wall. Beyond that wall, the cliff fell off to a deep canyon below that had a waterfall and shallow pools of water covering the bottom. The drop was at least 200 feet or more. Jordan and Michael stepped over the retaining wall toward the edge of the cliff, and Jordan looks down and she begins to shout that she can see a body down there. So they all run to look and they see a figure lying at the bottom. So they all return to the car and they go to the camp store that's on site to alert the park ranger's office, and a ranger was dispatched to meet the group at the store. So arriving at 8:30 p.m., Jordan told the ranger that she had located a dead body and led him back to the cliff. On the way back, she explained that they were searching for her missing husband and that she believed they had discovered his body. The ranger commented that he found it odd that she had found the exact spot where the body was, and Jordan told him that the Holy Spirit had led her to the right spot. She also told the ranger that particular spot was a place that Cody wanted to visit before he died, and that really unnerved the ranger. While Jordan was with the search party at Glacier Park, the Kalispell detective that interviewed Jordan the day before, he also lived in her neighborhood, and he noticed something odd sticking out of her trash cans that had been put out for collection. He had been walking his dog on his street and he saw the couple's trash cans full to overflowing. The detective found a stack of love letters, teddy bears, Valentine's gifts, and part of a wedding dress. He took the bag and dumped it out on his own garage floor, and he photographed the contents. He then put everything back into the garbage bag and put it on Jordan's doorstep. It was too late in the day to retrieve the body from the bottom of the canyon on the day it was discovered, so a team was organized and they set out the next morning. Along with investigators and park rangers, the county coroner was assigned the task of climbing down the ravine by a rope to make a preliminary examination of the body before it was removed. The body of a male was found floating in the water face down. He was clothed in a shirt and shorts. He was not wearing any shoe about 150 yards downstream. Another shoe and one sock was found down a slope a little closer to the body. The coroner surmised that Cody had fallen down the cliff head first. There was an 8-inch gash on his forehead. There were also injuries found on his arms and scrapes and bruises found on his legs. All injuries consistent with falling off a 200-foot cliff. He also had several broken ribs, and the state medical examiner ruled Cody's death as a result of blunt force trauma. He also equated the injuries to someone who had been in a major car crash. His heart had also been torn open. One item found stood out to investigators and would later be a matter of speculation. It was a piece of black cloth that they found that was just a short distance away, that was discovered lying in a drain that was not far from the body. Retrieving Cody's body proved to be very difficult, and a helicopter had to be flown in to lift him. Meanwhile, Cody's family and friends were shattered. They were all grieving, yet what Jordan did was update her social media with pictures of she and Cody on their wedding day. Her status read, "Miss you so much, Cody. Not a day will go by that I won't think about you. You will live on in my heart forever. I know you are in a better place now, looking down on me. You're my angel. Love you with all my heart and soul. See you again one day." Shortly after, Jordan told her friends that now they have the body, they can have the funeral, and the cops can be out of it. Cody's funeral was held a few days later. It drew a huge crowd, and people noticed that Jordan was sitting right there in the front row, and she was not crying or paying attention to the service at all. She actually was on the phone texting the entire time. She would not even acknowledge Cody's mother, and people say that she was not even crying. Because of the way Jordan was behaving at the funeral, people who only had suspicions that Jordan had something to do with it, they were even more convinced that she did, and some of them called the police to let them know about their suspicions. On July 16th, the team investigating Cody's death asked Jordan to come back to the police department to answer some questions. There were actually several agencies involved in the investigation because Cody was found in a national park. So both the National Park Service and the FBI were called in addition to the Flathead Sheriff's Department and Parks Canada. So if you don't know what Parks Canada is, Parks Canada is an agency of the government of Canada that's run by a chief executive who answers to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. So Jordan gets to the police department and gets questioned by the FBI. At first, she sticks to her original story of Cody taking off with friends. The investigator questioned her about her relationship with Cody, looking for any truth in her answer, considering that Cody's friends had told them that she was reluctant to marry Cody, and they knew of some of her behavior before and after the wedding. So Jordan admits that she wasn't on cloud nine, and she minimizes what she tells, or what she told her friends about marrying Cody, and she admits to the detective that she felt that she should have waited a bit longer to marry him. So the agent lays out all of the evidence they found and told her that they did not believe her about that email that she said she got from Tony. They tell her that Cody's injuries were not consistent, that he had fallen head first, which means that he was pushed off, he did not fall off, and they tell her that they know the email is a fake and that it came from a computer at her stepfather's address. They also had mobile phone records showing that she was with Cody that day at Glacier National Park. So at first, Jordan denies all of this and tells them that they're wrong. But then they tell her that they have photographic evidence that she was with Cody that day on July 7th at the park, because there was a surveillance camera at the entrance to the park, and it had captured video of their car with Cody driving and Jordan in the passenger seat at 9:15 p.m. So this is the point when Jordan changes her story. Now she said, okay, yeah, I was with Cody, but the fall was a terrible accident. She said when they went back home after having dinner with their friends that night, that Cody decided to take a drive to the park to talk about their issues. Jordan says that once they walked to the loop walking trail, they continued to argue, and they ended up walking to the other side of the trail to an area that was very steep, and they walked down to a stump. While hiking down the slope, the argument intensified. At that point, they stepped over the retaining wall separating the cliff drop-off. She says that she didn't want to go down that particular trail because she was afraid he could fall. She didn't say they, she said he. She says that Cody told her that he was so safe that he could walk down the cliff with a blindfold. So remember that black piece of cloth. Investigators theorized that Jordan had lured Cody out there to the edge of the cliff, and that perhaps that was the surprise she had promised to Cody that night when he was supposed to hang out with his father-in-law. They wondered if she promised him some sort of sexual act since they hadn't consummated their marriage yet, but Jordan denied knowing anything about the piece of black cloth. Jordan then went on to say that they continued walking and arguing, and she says that Cody grabbed her arm and part of her coat, and that Cody had abused her in the past, and she thought to herself, oh no, not this time. I'm going to defend myself. She says she knows she could have just walked away, but says she put one hand on his shoulder and one hand on his back and pushed him from behind, and that's how he fell face first off the cliff. She claimed it was an accident and said it was a quick thing, and she just wanted to get him off of her. She says she doesn't feel like she killed him because although she pushed him, it was an accident. She said after she saw him fall off the cliff that it was a moment of complete shock and panic, but instead of yelling for help, she walked back down the trail to the parking lot and drove back home. She had the car keys in her coat pocket, which was another odd thing because Cody was the one who drove to the park. Even afterward, she didn't call anybody about what search before Cody's body was found and even after the funeral, Jordan says she never called police or told anybody because she was afraid that nobody would believe her story. The investigator points out to her that she had her mobile phone and they had evidence of her texting people on her drive home. This is when Jordan is finally arrested and, true to form, Jordan didn't even react. This was the first murder ever recorded in Glacier National Park's history. Jordan was charged with first-degree murder. She had only been married for 8 days. Faced with the possibility of life in prison, Jordan pled not guilty. She spent 2 months in jail and then was released on house arrest in the custody of her parents and was monitored by an electronic device attached to her ankle. She was also ordered to have a mental health evaluation and to get mental help if it proved that she needed to. Her trial began in December of 2013, which was almost 1 year to the date when she accepted Cody's proposal of marriage. The trial occurred in federal court since the death happened in a national park. So Jordan was defended by an assistant federal attorney, and his opening statement portrayed Jordan as unhappily married, and that she and Cody argued frequently the week after the wedding. The attorney told the jury that, yes, she lied to the police, but Jordan was a scared rabbit, so she created a web of lies. Jordan's friend and maid of honor testified about all of the text messages and explained that Jordan was freaked out about the marriage, and she told the jury how Jordan was running out of excuses as to why she wasn't having sex with her husband. She said that Jordan acted happy about the proposal and marriage, but she never wanted to talk about she and Jordan's future or the wedding after they got married, and that Jordan would get irritated when the subject was brought up. Cody's friends and mother all testified as well to all of what they observed. After 3 days of testimony, Jordan never showed sadness nor remorse. It wasn't until her 16-year-old brother took the stand that she showed any emotion. Michael, that's her younger brother, had looked up to Cody as a big brother and described how happy he was when his sister got engaged and told about how much he loved spending time with them. On the 4th day of the trial, Jordan changed her plea from not guilty to guilty of second-degree murder. The prosecutors gave a deal to waive the first-degree murder charge and the additional charge of lying to investigators for her guilty plea. After hearing all of the testimony, it was not looking good for Jordan, but there may have been reasons as to why her attorney advised her to plead guilty before the trial ended. First, the prosecutors filed court documents saying that they had evidence that Jordan also talked about killing her mother and stepfather in the weeks before the wedding, and they were looking to present that evidence at trial. Secondly, they also were going to bring in the theory that Cody had been the victim of a surprise attack by Jordan, and they had the black cloth that they found near Cody She was still saying that Cody had grabbed her arm and prevented her from leaving. She said she could have walked away, but due to her anger, she pushed him, causing his death. So Jordan was sentenced on March 27, 2014, and stood in front of the judge saying she didn't know why. She did not make different choices that day. However, the day before she was to be sentenced, she attempted to withdraw her guilty plea. After agreeing to the plea deal, Jordan had read a court memo in which the prosecutor called the killing premeditated and were requesting that she receive a sentence more than 50 years. Her motion to withdraw the plea was rejected by the judge. The judge did not give her the harshest sentence he could, but instead he gave her 30 years of prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. Her attorney filed an appeal in 2015, classifying Jordan's sentence as extreme. In 2016, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals filed a mandate affirming the court's decision to deny the request of a shorter prison sentence. She is now serving her 30-year sentence at a federal prison in Alabama. Okay, you guys, so remember I told you about the wedding song that she wrote the lyrics to the song. So I want to read to you something that was in the lyrics. It says, "We climbed higher for a better view," and that was to describe the couple's future together. And then it says, "You are my safe place to fall." Crazy. Okay guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I'm so sorry for the kind of lo-fi thing going on right now, but I either have to find out a way to adjust my settings on that other microphone or just get a new one or something, but I'm just really not happy with it. But we'll see.